So let's add a little bit of more love for our weapons. So up till now we were simply just moving them. We do have the recoil, we do have all the stuff, but I kind of want to make programmatically make the slider go back and all those things, since most likely all weapons we are going to be using will have a slider and it will go back. There is some weapons that are kind of special in that case, but we can worry on those later. So let's go and find our items. I'm just going to use, I'll be using the same object for both of them, so whatever, let's do it on one. And you can see that we already have a weapon hook. So let's open up the script, and what I want to add in my weapon hook is to basically just add the slider transform onto this. So that will be public transform bullet weapon slider. So we can have, we can either do this inside update or we can do this as a coroutine. I think both are valid options, but let's think. Well, first of all, I know I'm going to need an animation curve for slider curve. How far back, or how the weapon slider is going to be moving. Let's try the coroutine first. So that will be float t while t is less than 1, t plus time dot delta time, and we're going to be getting a value from the slider curve dot evaluate based on t. Then we do yield return null in this case, and float t should start at 0. Then for the weapon slider, we're going to be getting the local position weapon slider dot local position dot, then we're going to be affecting the local position dot z with the added value we have from our slider. Then we're going to be adding it back this way. Okay, one thing that we need, however, is the fire rate for this specific weapon. That's kind of easy to find, but why do we need this? Because we're going to be multiplying that to get our speed. So let's pass the fire rate here, and we're going to be saying if weapon slider is not null, start coroutine, move weapon slider fire rate, and we will need a public float, a curve multiplier. Let's start from 0.01f or 0.1f right now, and that way, so we can multiply that with the value we get over here. So we're getting smaller values. So let's see where we are calling this from. On the weapon suit, as you can see, that's on the runtime item, which means I can just access the base item dot or the weapon dot fire rate. So with that, I can just go and set this up. Now there is one thing that we should take into account of some things that can go wrong. Let's see the slider. Problem 1, it doesn't start from 0. and that is the 0 position. So you can see that we basically want to go from one position, from this position to this position, and this is actually wrong. So it's the model that is modeled wrong. This should have been opened, but whatever, we could just move it back. Could just do it like this. So this should have been dark, is what I'm saying. And let's see, that's our mag slider, okay. Anyway, so this is from 0.04 to from 0.8 to 0.004. So the values we're going to be using are going to be based on these positions. Alternatively, since this is only for the slider, we could be using set positions. So let's maybe try that then. And let's go on our weapon hook, and I'm going to create a public vector3 slider start position, slider end position. Then instead of using this, well, for slider start position on start, we can say if weapon slider is not null, then slider start position will be weapon slider dot local position. That's local position load local angler. So let's see, slider evaluate. This now needs to be removed. So basically we just need to say delete these two. Then we're going to be doing a simple lerp from slider start position, slider end position, based on the value we get from the curve, not from the T. Okay, because with the T we also have the fire rate. Okay, then let's assign the slider position, and we already know what position that is. Oops. And we already know that we're only going to be going backwards, so let's add that. And let's add this as well. Okay, so I'm just going to set this to 0.4. Okay, then on both weapons I'm going to add it the same prefab, because we don't really care about the different weapons, we only care about doing the animation. Okay, so I see we don't get the actual animation because we do not have a slider curve, first of all. So here's the thing, that is your curve from, well, this is how as long an animation will play depending on your fire rate. So if it's at 0.1, then your animation was probably going to be maybe even less than that. So let's try set the value to 0 and set the value to 0 as well. Then about here at 0.2, I'm going to set the key to 1. I'm going to set the value to 1. And about here, I'm going to set this as well to 1. These two will be connected with flat like this. So this, in a sense, will give us an explosive start. It will stay there for a few seconds, or for whatever, for how long that will be. and it will return back to us. So let's try this out, and I can actually save this curve, because we're going to be using it a lot, because it's the same logic with most of the sliders. Okay, and that's why we're doing it this way, that is. And I see it's not happening either. So let's start debugging then. Let's close that. And let's see why that is. I think it might have to do with the fire rate. Let's delete that. And let's try it. It's going to be too slow, but we will see. Okay, so I'm seeing that we're getting nothing. So I think we might not even calling it. That's what I'm going to lead to. So let's see. I thought we had some particles underneath, but apparently we don't. Weapon fire rate. Let's see whether this is going to be called. Current weapon hold shoot. Can fire. Let's attach that to Unity. So let's open this up. Let's give this a shot. So I have the solution. It's basically the weapon hook. Yeah, I wasn't recording and I didn't check that. And the weapon hook is not assigned, that's why we're skipping that. So we just need to go and find where the instance we create is for the weapon hook. Here's one thing we can do, however, since we do keep, or do we keep a reference to our object? We don't have, yeah, we don't have an object reference or the object distance. Let's see. Component children. This should have been done. This should have happened anyway. But apparently this return null. Let's see. Debug.log current weapon hook. I don't know if this has to do. No, it doesn't have to do with us not being able to. Yeah, okay. With us not being in fake multiplayer. Let's hit play. Okay, so, well, that's definitely not null. But then why are you... Well, this is not null, so why is this not happening then? Random item, weapon hook. Hold on. So one mistake we are doing is basically we are overwriting the current weapon if this is both FPS and TPS. Okay, so this needs to happen only when we are using so we're setting the current weapon only when we are using the FPS part. Okay, otherwise we're losing the references. So then let's save the item instance. item. Let's cut all that. Then cut this. This will be item.baseitem.prefab. Then if this is not FTPS, then current weapon equals item. Okay. Then I'm going to just go back on my weapon hook and enable the fire rate that we are passing, because that might have been correct. Just had some logic wrong. And let's hit play. And you can see that we do indeed have the animations. So the idea is we're going to keep onto the screen. Now, of course, I'm shooting way too fast for this type of gun. So I think, let's say this was a correct weapon into the game, a balanced weapon. We're going to go on both test weapon and red weapon. I'm going to change the fire rate to maybe 0.5. And we'll see what's going to, how it's going to affect. Yeah, as you can see, it kind of affects way too much the animation. So I think we should keep the fire rate independent of, or well, this fire rate should be independent of that. And we can use our own fire rate then, public float fire rate. Let's call it, let's start with 0.1. Okay, we have our fire rate. This will just start then, and this is now useless. And then we can take it a little bit back, and then we're keeping it here. So that will basically be it for animating the slider. We can, of course, add a lot more things. We could add some shake, and we will add some shake. Let's give this a shot. Okay, perfect. Now, of course, the gun is too slow, but we can test that. We can just set this to maybe 0.15. Of course, fire rate for guns really depends on a lot of things, but you know the idea. This one works great right now. So the good thing with this is basically, let's say I want to create a new weapon. Let's duplicate this weapon, and well, we now have two instances, so we're going to use one of them. So let me find some other model to assign. I'm going to go in here. We have some other weapons, and let's go with what's metal, what's small. Okay, let's go with metal. I'm going to drop it on the same position as this one, although I think this position is actually kind of off. Now, this doesn't need a mesh collider, obviously, and for this one we can unpack it entirely. So let's see what this is. Yeah, for the most part they are on the same position, that they make sense. Okay, so I can basically delete, oops, before I delete this, I'm actually going to move the bullet origin, and I'm going to move that back. Okay, so here's our pistol. We can make this into the weapon slider. We need to fix the slider distances. So this will be now 0, 6.2, and then this will be, we start by 1995. Let's see what's the correct position. No, they probably don't go that far back. They'll probably go something like this, let's say. So let's do 0.43. Okay, put that there. And then now we have two different weapons. But I'm just going to assign, let's see, I'm just going to leave it with the first pivot, so we get the new gun. And you saw that, what was that, less than 1 minute? We created a new weapon. And it already has one animation. Of course, we don't have reload animations, but it already has one animation, so that will be that's great. So we technically can just make it go back. Yeah, so we basically can make any animation, any weapon we want pretty fast without having to worry doing all the animations ourselves. And we can do the same thing for the trigger actually, and we can even do it for the fingers. But all on that on a different part. For right now, I'm going to call it a day. And so that's it for this part. As always, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and if you like to see more stuff, more videos, more series, more of everything, then consider supporting my Patreon so we can keep making all of these nice things we're making. I'll see you next time.